So Wesley, welcome to, I guess, your second office hours, but first office hours with Ben. He's
Yeah.
here to kind of answer questions that you might have about fundraising, startups, and that whole
Okay.
shebang.
Okay.
Go ahead and put your questions in the chat, or if you
Okay.
would like to ask a question anonymously, you can click on the three dots, go into Q&A, and then there's an option for you to post anonymously there.
Okay. So just put the questions in the chat,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, welcome, Xavier. Welcome, Arzena. Let's get going. Thank you, Ben, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Um,
Pleasure to be here.
yeah, we can kick off the first question
Yes.
from David. So, David's asking,
Okay.
how much do you look at the financial model itself while making an angel decision? Is it unit economics, burn rate, path to profitability?
It's all of those things. I would say, the biggest things I look at when deciding to invest are team, market, and market is soft science. Like anybody can project $1 billion TAM for almost anything. But just knowing that they're thinking about like what is the market, where's the beachhead, like that kind of thing. And looking at the SOM, like on the market slide, I'm looking mostly at SOM.
Mhm.
Unit economics is another big one, making sure that the unit economics makes sense. And there's a fourth one, but the kind of the pro forma of it, I don't I usually don't spend a whole lot of time with it just because it's not my expertise. I will if kind of the pro forma and the financial model, if the financial model includes debt in some way, which it often doesn't in venture. But if I'm looking at a private equity deal or something like that, I will try to involve a more micro financial minded investor so that I can I can get their opinion on it. But I'm usually not the one doing that evaluation myself. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but but yeah, the main things I'm looking at are team, market, unit economics, that kind of thing. And there's one other element that I look a lot at, but it slips my mind what it is right now. All to say, I'm usually not going through the pro forma
Mhm.
in hard detail, but I sometimes will ask another investor to do it.
I see, I see. And so kind of a little bit of follow-up to that is that, when you are looking at, let's say, early stage companies, do you expect this kind of, pro forma or some sort of, a decent enough financial model to be worked out at like pre-seed, or is it more about like a certain stage, you know?
Yeah, I think that so it's a good question, and I don't necessarily need a complex pro forma at pre-seed. I think there are certain businesses where that would lean to that a little bit more. Um, Stuff that's really high capex, I think you probably want to have a little bit more of a worked out pro forma than stuff that's lower capex and where what matters is the unit economics.
Mhm.
But if there is a significant capex spend, then figuring out here's when we need to spend this money, here's when we need to spend that money. The timing of everything becomes more important. So I think in those situations, it's probably a bigger deal to have a fully fleshed out pro forma, um, and even at pre-seed, because you're raising money with an eye toward these potentially big capex spends. So yeah, you kind of do need to have it worked out in those situations. But for something like software, like most software, I don't know that a really well built pro forma is necessary, especially at pre-seed. Um, so I think that's kind of where kind of where the delineation is for me is how big is your capex relative to your total spends. If there's a lot of capex, you're more likely to need pro forma. And for anyone who may not know, CapEx just means capital expenditures. So if you think of capital expenditures as an investment you make in the early going, like, for example, you don't do this in tech, but if you have to buy a building, for example, then that's a big CapEx spend because you make that purchase up front, and then OpEx is the other side of it, which is ongoing expenditures. If you think of the one side of the income statement versus the other, CapEx is kind of like SG&A. It's like selling general and administrative expenses where there's not like a unit assignment of each expenditure. OpEx though is, you're paying people on an ongoing basis, and there's an assignment of each person to that expense. So don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Ben. I hope that David can get some clarity for his answers when he watches the recording.
Sure.
We have our next question from Wesley over here.
Okay.
Wesley's asking, I'm making a live service video game in a very unique space called gacha gaming. Do you think VCs would care about the game itself being mentioned in the pitch deck at all, or more about the financial model itself?
I think the good question, really good question. I think they will care about knowing why the game or type of game it is important, why it's relevant. If it's something that's trending right now, that's something that they would want to know. I don't think they care about the exact nature of the game. Now, I'm a gamer, so that's something that's interesting to me. But even for me, like as a lifelong player of games, I'm not really interested in what I feel like. What I feel like game pitches often in particular try to do with that, which I don't like to see, is this type of game is really hot right now, so here's why this can't fail. That, like I feel like that's the way that they're framing it sometimes, and I don't like that. But in terms of kind of building it into, look, here's the landscape as it currently stands. This type of game is trendy right now, and then on to the kind of the rest of the business case. That I think is the right for me. That's the right way to frame it. And bear in mind, like I'm more gaming minded than most investors are. So I'm probably at the far end in terms of, even for me, I don't care that much about it because it's an investment, not something I'm going to be playing myself. So I appreciate the context, but it's really just one slide, maybe two slides.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. Saber's asking the next question.
Yeah.
Saber's asking, pre-revenue, what is the best time to begin contacting investors?
10 years ago. Keep going.
When you have your team together, when you have users in your waitlist, or when you're launched and have some early users? Asking this because it's easy to gain an investor's interest and then lose it because you took too long to get to market.
So that last point is a good point, but I would say it's never too early to start contacting investors. I think that it's the idea is, and they will take note of how fast you're able to move. But what investors really want to see is consistent forward progress, not necessarily huge leaps. Like investors understand, I understand, and I think most investors understand that challenges arise. And sometimes it takes longer to get to that sort of hockey stick. Like, there are businesses that kind of sit next to the founders group, a couple of which I'm involved with. And we've been at this for a year, and none of those have hit venture scale. And I'm a founder with an exit. Like I kind of know what I'm doing in this space. And so we're finding what the right offering is, what the market is, like what are the unit economics going to look like, all that stuff that we were talking about a few minutes ago. And so but I think it's never too early to start courting investors and start making them aware that you exist. An investor that I work with pretty closely has always said the best time to start fundraising is 10 years ago. The second best time to start fundraising is today, and the best time to stop fundraising is never. And so the idea that you just have to keep investors in your funnel, run your raise like a sales campaign, and keep them getting that middle of funnel stuff. And so I don't think as long as you're demonstrating consistent forward progress, but you haven't like hit the hockey stick yet, or you haven't even necessarily like gotten to market yet, but you're assembling data on customers, you're assembling interest, and the holy grail of this is you've made pre-sales, and even if you aren't in market yet, you still got money. So I think founders will kind of trip over themselves a little bit sometimes with this. Well, I can't make money until I have a product. Wrong. If you find the right market, you can make millions of dollars in pre-sales before you ever put a product in market. And investors love that. If something is so compelling that people will put their hard-earned American dollars, or whatever your currency is, that they'll put their hard-earned money in your hands before you can even give them a product, that's a market. Like, by the way, call me as soon as you start making pre-sales on stuff. So Savior, I understand the concern, and yes, investors can say that it is possible for investors to be in a spot where they're like, yeah, I heard from that founder, 5 months ago or 5 years ago or whenever it was, and then I just, what they'll say is, yeah, I never really heard. They won't say it took them too long to get to market. They'll say, I never heard from them again. That's the risk, is that you stop talking to them. Related to this, I've invested in founders who have lost my money that I would absolutely invest in again. Some of you have heard me do this spiel. And so I've invested in founders who have lost my money that I would never invest in again. And one-to-one, it is, did they keep me informed? Did they tell me what was going on, both the good and the challenges? Did they send me the investor recommendations newsletter? Did they pick up the phone and call me? If I had to chase them around to get information, I'm not investing with them again. If they told me what was going on, very honest, both the good and the bad, yeah, I'll probably give you my money again if I believed enough in you to do it the first time and you kept me informed. Same thing for prospective investors. Keep them informed on the journey. As you assemble pieces of traction, maybe it's not revenue yet. Maybe it's LOIs. Maybe it's some really interesting market survey data that you're getting. Like, tell your investors what's going on. We love that stuff. We love to know that you're continuing to pat the market and figure out where the gaps are and continuing to do your research and making forward progress. Investors want to hear that you're committed. They want to know that you're committed to the success for the long term.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Savior's got another question for you.
Yeah.
Is a focused founder often more attractive than a founder who has multiple successful businesses, or is it vice versa?
You'll get multiple schools of thought on this. Investors have differing opinions on this. I'm in camp B. I think the founder who has multiple businesses, and by the way, even a founder who has a day job, I know some investors are like, I want my founders to be all in right now. By the way, sometimes those investors are the same ones who are saying, yeah, founders, you shouldn't be investing to pay founder salaries. And I'm like, well, how are they supposed to live while they get to the exit? Come on, investors, be reasonable. So I am in camp B, in that I am perfectly fine with a founder having multiple businesses as long as they can make progress on all of those businesses, and in particular the one that I'm considering investing in. But I do not mind if a founder has a day job. In fact, I think that's often the best way to do things, especially if you're at something where you're kind of trying to decide whether to bootstrap or not, how much capital to take on. Now, most VCs, I think, will want the focus, because the VCs have to answer to their LPs, and they're, VCs as opposed to angels or individual investors, really the timing matters a lot. So speed is particularly important, and I think VCs in particular will want the single focus. and they should be paying you a salary, obviously, for that. Like you can't be like just sort of living on the street and eating like ramen noodles that you couldn't even afford to buy, like at the same time as the VC wants you to go raise your next round for 10 million so that they can go back and brag to their LPs about their great return on your company. Like, come on, you guys got to pick a lane. It's got to be one or the other. Founders have to live, right? But I am not in that camp. I'm in the other camp, which is take your time. Like, don't expect this stuff to happen overnight. Make it sustainable, right? I think this whole landscape will be better when we can encourage founders to take an approach of, I'm figuring this out little by little. It doesn't have to be an overnight success. They're building themselves into a founder career, not just for the one exit that, the shoot for the moon unicorn exit that, that makes the VC's portfolio in one fell swoop and makes me a billionaire in one fell swoop. And that is just not how this shit happens. I know there's proverbs about it all the time, but like the Sam Altman was already a billionaire before OpenAI. He was the former head of Y Combinator. Or was it Y Combinator or Andrew? I think he was the executive director at Y Combinator. But anyway, so people talk about overnight success. So just to close this out, people talk about overnight successes in this business all the time. Overnight successes are almost always, almost universally a product of creative framing. It really wasn't an overnight success. They might have been in stealth for 7 years before they launched and got to 10 million ARR in a month. Well, yeah, okay. So we're just going to write off the 7 years then. This stuff takes time, realistically, almost all the time. And anything that really does happen overnight is a confluence of circumstances. Like the resources that did make it happen overnight were a product of all the right people coming together with all the right tools to take care of a market need that just sort of that had been percolating for quite some time. Some new legislation, like it's overnight successes are never just, oh, hey, overnight success happened by magic, like, or because this person was just so talented. That's never how it goes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ben. Those were very good answers. I do have another question. Is it okay if I ask?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
All right. So where I'm from, the investors have this preference for solving local problems. But oftentimes we have unique experiences that may not often be local. So I want to know, in your case, which kind of founders are you more likely to invest in, right? Those who are solving problems within their local vicinity, or those who are solving more international problems that they have more fit with, a greater fit with?
So I think scalability is, so there's kind of two questions here. So the first one is, who do you go after first, right? There has to be a beachhead market of some kind, and sometimes that means a local market. Typically, I'm not looking for a local market though. Typically, like I'm actually kind of wary of local projects because I don't know if it's, because that on its own like kind of plays against scalability. Solving local problems, unless it is something that that functions virtually and that runs off of software or something else that is scalable, the localness of it is actually not a good sign. But having said that, you do need a beachhead market for things, and sometimes solving a problem at a local level can be a good beachhead market. What I would prefer in most cases, though, is not a geographically oriented beachhead market. It's a demographically oriented beachhead market. So it's really more about like, who is the who in New Jersey? Who is the who in Nigeria? Who is the who in College Station? Who is the who in Sacramento? Who is the who in Mumbai? And how do those all play together? So that is what I typically prefer in terms of beachhead is who are the people who have the same kinds of problems all over the country or all over the world, rather than solving a problem at a local level, because local can sometimes just mean not scalable.
Great answer. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for the question, Xavier. Appreciate that.
Yep. Thanks, Ben. That actually ended up answering a question I was going to ask next. But
Okay. I
but
see a question from Marzena. Marzena, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
I
No,
think she
it's
nodded
actually
her-
Marzena.
Marzena? Okay.
Marzena, yes, but everyone calls me Margie because it's easier.
Okay, Margie. I could, if you like that, I'll call you Margie.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Go
okay.
ahead, Anush. I'll let you.
Yeah.
I'll let you tee it up.
So Margie's asking, what about being a founder who is building a movement, business that is connecting people, that runs academy, networking, and other activities focused on people?
So and Margie, feel free to add some additional context on this if you want to. I'm open. I'm certainly open to a project like that. I guess it's and there are businesses that have that have become successful essentially building around community. I mean, one of the famous failures that was originally a huge success was WeWork. Now in that case, it was kind of a real estate, like WeWork was essentially a real estate play. But where I find stuff like that often does really well is in what sits next to the community. What is and you mentioned an academy, like that's absolutely a scalable business. That like running something like Coursera or Khan Academy or Udemy, or like those are absolutely scalable businesses. Now there are other players in the market, so you need to figure out like, all right, who's the market? How are you are you using AI in a way that they're not using it? Like what's the differentiation? But those and network and so forth within that, it could be helpful. I think that social networks are continuing to niche down, and so if you find the right sort of community, connecting people, education, networking, that stuff can absolutely work. I would certainly take a look at something like that. But you had a comment that you don't feel that's falling into normal investment. Maybe not.
I said that mostly because my approach is that when you set a really concrete plan, especially if you combine it with tech, it's very easy to kind of lock yourself in this 3, 4, 5 years plan, and you achieve this goal, and you planning to achieve this goal with kind of rigidity. And because when I started my project, it's like multidisciplinary agency at the same time. So it's connecting people. It's basically making referrals, making introductions, offering different. For example, right now I'm running one product called Through Client's Eyes, which is like customer brand and client improvement program. And so that's what actually makes me a little bit confused, because my vision contains so many elements with here's academy, here's networking, here's something else. So basically, I don't want to lock myself, okay, right now I'm gonna build a platform that will do only one thing, because I see that this is all interconnected and it needs to be actually treated with specific timing as well. Like right now I see that people are actually getting together in that way. Okay, let's write this way, right? So it's a little bit, that's why I'm saying it's not really going into normal investment, because investors are looking for this kind of certainty, like looking for the specific outcomes. You have to put these KPIs. You need to actually put the measurable outcome, right? For them to actually feel safe and feel that this is worth investing in. That's why I'm saying it's not falling into normal investments. And I was actually curious if you have any advice about it. So maybe kind of sponsorship, because it's actually community based, right? So maybe different approach to investment.
Sure. So it's what I would say is in the thing that investors are going to look for are that you have so you can have many different things that you do, but they're going to want to see what is the killer app, so to speak? What is the primary offering that differentiates this from everything else? And you can do a lot of different things, but they're going to say like, what is the one thing that sets this apart? That they will be asking that question. The other thing that I would say is if there are a lot of different things that it's doing, then what they will be looking for. So right now there's some divergence, and that's fine. But eventually it has to converge back to something. And that's not always what they don't want is, well, we just keep drifting off farther and farther afield until like, because we as founders, myself included, we can be a little bit shiny objects sometimes. And what the investors want to know is, sure, that you can be building a lot of different offerings, but it has to be in service of kind of what the one sentence is, that, yeah, in the long run, we are trying to be this for this group of people. We it's the hacky LinkedIn. We help this group of people do this, so they can do what really matters, run their business. So that's the thing. So yes, that's totally fine as long as you can convince them that there is a thing or maybe two things that set you apart, and as long as it all eventually converges.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah,
Actually,
absolutely.
in the
Great
end,
question.
there is a tech, like in the end, there's supposed to be a platform that brings all the activities together, right? It's supposed to be like hub for founders.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and I'd be interested to hear more about it. So, Anush, I sent you a quick note on Discord, but quick PM. But then you've got what's the next question?
Yeah, actually, Ben, I wanted to go back to one of your answers, actually, for the very first question about SOM.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, like, what are some of the ways that you've kind of seen founders calculate SOM? Because of course, I can just come to you and say, "Oh, my SOM is $100 million."
Sure.
How have you seen founders actually defend that?
There's kind of two ways to do it. There's top down and bottom up. And AI and investors know this, and I think we're fine. I think we're broadly fine with it. AI is the best place to start for TAM SAM SOM. And then take a look at it and sort of BS check it, like human check it yourself to make sure that you're kind of pointed in the right direction. But I think it's usually we're looking for a SAM, if we're talking about, so we're not down to SOM yet, but let's just say for convenience, let's say the TAM is $1 billion. We'll use a nice round number. So $1 billion TAM. We're looking for a SAM that's between probably 50 million and 250 million. That's usually, between 1/20th, I guess, and 1/4 of what the TAM is kind of usually what makes sense. And then SOM would be between, kind of same thing, between 10 million or 12 or 15 million, between a 20th and a fourth. So between 5% and 25%. Each scale down is 5% to 25%. And so then where that gets you to is usually your SOM is between 0.2% to all the way up to 10% of your original TAM. Any scaling that looks really different from that is going to make the investors ask questions like, why is the SAM so much smaller than that? And it kind of throws them off. So usually, 5 to 25% scale down at each state. And I think most commonly, I think top down is more common than bottom up. But with AI, you can really do either. So that's, and also everybody understands that Tam Sam Som is kind of bullshit. Like, it's like it's just, does the investor look at it? What it's really about is the investor wants to hear the way you think, and Tam Sam Som is a good opportunity for them to hear the way you think. And then they want to say, oh yeah, do I believe in this market? Do I believe that there's a scalable market here, that the founder's looking at a beachhead that makes sense. We heard a pitch yesterday where it's a very bright founder, but their beachhead market was all young people in India between the ages of 20 and 32, I think. And I looked at that and I thought, my friend, you just don't have a beachhead market. And no offense, but that is not a beachhead market. That is a massive scalable market. And so they want to know you are going after a specific beachhead, and then that it can propagate out to, to a much larger market in the end. What else?
Neil has a follow-up to that.
Yes.
Neil is asking, is there a pitch that would make you not care about the Tam Sam Som?
Yeah, certainly. In the end, you have to figure that the market is big enough to bear some sort of scale. But there are absolutely, I've heard many pitches where I was like, man, I don't give a crap about the market. Get me behind this founder. This founder is someone I want to invest in. This is somebody I want to write a check to. Now, part of that is the measurables, the prior exits, the major brand associations, that is where you're taking that kind of swing on somebody. Like, oftentimes the pedigree does matter. Like, if that person did 5 years at Google, or they have a business degree from Stanford, or they got 3 prior exits, like, I'm not gonna lie, in that situation, like, so in addition to being an impressive person, they've also done all of this stuff that is quantifiable. Oftentimes that sort of thing does require both. But there have been other situations where I'm like, the fulfilling of sales that have already been made is something I love buying, where the founder is like, the sales are already made, but we don't have the capital for inventory. The first question that I'll ask is, well, will they put down deposits? But if there's something else that's complicating that process, then that's something I love investing in. I mean, there have been other situations where I've just kind of fallen in love with the founder. Now, sadly, I've been right about that, and I've also been wrong about that, which is why I usually advise before cutting a big check these days. But yeah, so I like doing advisory work. But yeah, Neil, to answer your question, yeah, there are certainly pitches out there that would make me say, forget the TAM, like, just get me next to this founder. I want to be working next to this person.
And I guess, like, maybe in some cases you might want to see them, depending on the type of business. Like, if it's a brick and mortar business and, like, one location is making 5,000 a month, but then they're like, oh yeah, we'll open 5 locations and we're going to be making 20 billion in a year.
Probably not. Probably not.
But I guess that would be kind of like a case where you would want to kind of hear how they're thinking through it.
Sure. Yes. And yeah, and that situation, brick and mortar, and I've invested in brick and mortar. But that's a situation where scale can be really challenging. And not every business has to scale. Like, it's not always, because really scale is primarily possible in software, where like you can you get a thing that you can instantly syndicate anywhere. And as long as you got the server infrastructure and the customer service infrastructure to back it all up, like, yeah, you could go to the moon tomorrow. But there are other kinds of scale, but brick and mortar is something that's particularly challenging.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Neil's got another question for you. Neil's asking, do you have passion project investments, stuff that you wanted to be a part of and not exit, even if the profit isn't the best?
Yes, but usually I'm more willing to commit I'm more willing to commit time to those and, and advisory help and, other resources rather than big money. I'm usually not I don't put big capital, for example, behind, you know, uh, ESG stuff that I may really believe in, and I might be willing to help out with my, contributing my time and other resources to it. I'm really involved in my church, for example. I consider that a passion project investment. And, our family does donate some money to our church, but we don't make big capital outlays to our, 6-figure capital outlays to our church. And is much less 7 figures. That's not what that community is really about. And I would typically say if a founder is asking me to believe in a passion project, that is not a financial deal like that, it's kind of two sides of the aisle for me. Like, there's stuff that I believe in and that I want to contribute time to. Like, I don't ever expect to make money on this office hours. This is a lot of people helped me. So it's incumbent on me to help other people. This is not about making money. This is about giving my time, which is very valuable on the other side of the aisle. But so the answer, to bring it back around, Neil, the answer to your question is yes. But I would typically be more likely to potentially write a small check, but then primarily look at that as a that kind of thing. So I see a follow-up to that, Anush.
Oh, Neil just saying he wants to start a dog therapy center that's made for rescue dogs. So I think that's why he was asking about the passion projects.
Neil, you need to talk. So I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about it. I love dogs. We don't have any dogs because we have 3 going on 4 children, under the ages of 7, all under the age of 7 right now. But I love dogs. And by the way, Kevin Wu, after he exits Nickel Pay, wants to start a dog rescue. So you should have a conversation. Kevin's right there in the server, so you should have a conversation with him. Oh, and call me, like, if you need stuff.
Patrick's got a question for you, Ben. We have about a few more minutes left in the session, but Patrick's asking,
I got until 12:15 today.
What's a question you wish founders would ask you more often?
That's a great question. Great question. And I have a very clear answer to it. The question that I wish founders would ask more often. So this goes to the classic ask for money, get advice, ask for advice, get money scenario. I wish founders would ask me, what should I be doing? Here's my thing, would love to pick your brain on this. I invite them to this office hours, and we can talk about it. By the way, you guys should always feel free to, and I think everybody is kind of doing this already, but if you're not doing it, you should feel free to do it. Ask very specific questions about your very specific business. Everyone should feel free to do that at this office hours. It's not just for broad general questions. The point of this is to do content that's valuable for you, not for me to get up here and pontificate and impress everybody with how smart I am. That is not the objective here. So the question that I wish founders would ask more often is, what should I be doing differently? And 2, would you be willing to advise me? And the answer to that is nearly always yes. Obviously that comes with some equity typically. And if I'm bringing my team to help out with investor relations stuff down the road, then after the business has meaningful revenue, there's usually a small retainer associated with that too. That's usually how our advisory relationships work. But what should I be doing differently? Or can I pick your brain about this thing in relation to my business? As you can see, I love answering these questions. And it just has to be done in a format. The annoying version of that is, Ben, could I just have 30 minutes of your time, next week outside of this format? Would you make time for me and the 1,000 other people that are all asking the same question? That's hard. But in this format, it's great. So I would love to answer more of those questions. Everybody, this is open to the public. Everyone is welcome here. And then would you be interested in advising our company? Because that's the road to an investment check too. And I know that's what the founder, is, one of the things that the founder is most interested in. Maybe time for one more, Anush, and then I do have to jump.
Well, we don't have any more in the chat, but
Anush, do you want to talk about Founders Group?
yeah, absolutely. I know most everyone here is in the group already. Marzana, are you also already in the Founders Group, or did you just come about through LinkedIn or so forth? Okay, awesome. So you could head off to the founders.group, kind of check us out. We are a free community of like 500 plus founders who are just kind of, chatting about our ventures, are helping each other's out. And yeah, no, it's a great time. Ben, of course, he's the head of the group, and he has very kindly, he gives us his time and energy and effort. So, and it's just a great community. We also hold a bunch of other like resources and other events and stuff for the founders as well. Yeah. So please, after you get up this call, do come check us out and join our community. We'd love to have you on board.
Yeah, it is free. All this is free, and will always be free. So, would love to have anyone there who's not there already. So, and Margie, thank you for the question. All right, I do have to jump. Thank you everybody so much. Appreciate you guys valuing this time. Thank you for showing up to ask questions, and happy to be helpful. So, talk to everyone soon.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.